everyone, well, I deliberately waited until the middle of May to send you this video because I was really curious as to what was going to happen after the federal election. And, I'm going to show you the stats for April, and I'm going to show you the stats for up to the middle of May, just so you can see really what went on before the election and what has gone on after the election. But I will tell you this, to what I was expecting, there really hasn't been a dramatic change. But I want to make something really clear. If you're watching Canadian news, this can be very confusing. And I really want to clarify this, that Alberta is not following the trend of all of Canada. What is going on in other parts of Canada is not going on in Alberta. We're not seeing this major downturn in real estate in Alberta as you are in Ontario. Also, the Lower Mainland is seeing a pretty big correction, but I'm not surprised that those guys are having some trouble. I mean, from 2015 all the way to about 2022, Ontario, especially around the Greater Toronto area, was seeing prices rising at rates that were really not sustainable. And it really isn't surprised that at some point there was a catalyst that caused this market to correct. So quite frankly, I think it's overdue anyway. That's just me speaking. I know some people might not agree with that statement, but I think the reality is the prices had gotten a little inflated, especially when you just took a look at the cost of real estate for the average person in relation to their income. But the good news for us here in Alberta, especially either Calgary or Edmonton, is we're not experiencing that sort of thing. And we're still considered affordable, and I'm going to show you these stats so you can recognize it. So my advice is, as you're going to watch this video, is just remember that it's not wise to watch Canadian news and have them talk about a Canadian downturn or a recession on what that will do for all of Canada, because Alberta doesn't follow the same trend. And I want you to pay very close attention to what is happening in our province and let the stats show you what's going on, not so much people's opinion that you can get on all kinds of various different news channels, which is insane today of how many different places you can get news and different opinions. So I like to pay attention to the stats. The stats don't lie. All right, let's move on to one of my favorite charts to show you. First of all, you can see my team up here, which is all wonderful people. So we got you covered if you've got any questions on any part of the market. This is our absorption rate for detached houses in April in Calgary, 43.89% absorption rate. So almost 44% of all of the detached houses that were listed sold. And that's a healthy market. You can see we're right on the higher end of a balanced market. So this is a good thing, believe me. And even though some people might look at that and go, well, if only 44% of the houses sold, that's not really good. It is fine. That's a good balanced market, a pretty good selection of homes for people to choose from when they're buying. And if you're selling, it just means, as I always say, you're going to have to put a little extra effort into it. And for people who want to do that, we even have a new program, our Revitalization program. We will help you get your house ready to be sold. If it needs flooring and paint, we'll help you figure that out. We have a new program that we can get all that put in and collect the money after it sells, which makes it really easy. And for those people who don't even want to do anything, that say, you know what, maybe you have a property that's not in the best condition and I'd rather just sell it without going in the market, we have a new cash offer program for those folks as well. So definitely reach out to me if you have questions about that. But otherwise, you should have no problem selling your house if you're a seller, if you do the right things. If you're a buyer, it's pretty obvious. You've got a pretty good choice. But I'll tell you, when you look at the market, like I study this market every single day, and I'm always looking at the new listings that come on and what is being sold. And you can see that there's a percentage. There seems to be always around 20 to 30% of the entire active market where the sellers are just wanting more money for their property than buyers are willing to pay. And it's a really simple thing. I mean, buyers go and search around and shop other homes. Sellers generally don't. It's kind of a weird phenomenon, but you're selling your property and you haven't even visited the competition. It's always a good idea to do that, but you should be aware of what, if the house down the street is maybe equal to yours and they're selling it at a lower price, it's something to really think about but oftentimes sellers just don't even go and check those houses out. So that's a good practice to consider if you're going to be selling. Anyway, there's our benchmark price, $769,300. That's month over month. And you can see that's only slightly down 0.06%. We're still up 2.41% year over year. So that's why I said to you when we started this video, we're not seeing any corrections on pricing really in Calgary. We are seeing a slowdown in volume of sales, but we're not seeing a correction in pricing. And if we come down here, you can see we had 1,102 sales out of 2,511. And that's why when you look at this chart going back in the past 12 months, that's still a pretty healthy market, all things to consider. Yes, the inventory is up and the sales are down, but like I keep saying, it's more of a balanced market. And you can see for price distribution, 600 to 700,000. That's the sweet spot right now for detached houses in Calgary. That's where most of the buyers are. And I can tell you from experience, like if you're buying your first house and you want to be in a detached house, you know, this is that sweet spot right here. And the properties that are listed well in that price range, they will sell pretty quick. But a close second now is that $700,000 to $800,000 price range. So I mean, look at that. We're almost 50% of the entire market between $600,000 and $800,000. Okay, now I'm going to skip right over to row housing, and this is where we've seen a dramatic change. Wow. It's incredible how a year ago, if you look at the absorption rate, was almost like 100%. Almost every single thing that was listed sold. And now suddenly a year later, we're at 35.32%. So row housing has definitely been a little more challenging now. Combination of they built a lot of them. If you look around the city, I mean, that's the product of choice. Builders went crazy on building these, so the supply really increased. And whenever that happens, you're just going to have just a lot more choice, and that's going to level things off. But the demand certainly started to fall down as well. And I think part of it is the pricing got up there. You know, there was a point a couple years ago where you could get a pretty decent townhouse in Calgary, you know, in the 300s, and now it's challenging to find good townhouses in the low fours. Most of the time now you're going to have to pay in the high fours or the low fives, and that just put that kind of pressure on pricing. I think in a combination of having so much inventory has put pressure on the demand. But that being said, 35.32% is still in the balanced market territory, and our benchmark price was at $457,400, which is up slightly month over month and up slightly year over year. So things have leveled off. We're not seeing any major price decreases, but you will see, though, some pockets in the city, and I've noticed it, where some of the row housing, the prices are coming down, where there's some motivated sellers that are dropping their price and for various different reasons are trying to sell, because people sell for all kinds of reasons. Don't always assume they're selling just because they're desperate, but sometimes people have bought another property. They want to get into the next home. Sometimes people are moving out of a community into another city. You know, there's lots of reasons why people do this, but the motivated people are dropping a little bit, trying to get to get their place sold rather quickly. And that's why there's some opportunities if you're a buyer. If we come down here, you'll see there was 355 out of 1,005 that actually were listed. And you can see why when you look at this chart, you know, just incredible that a year ago, you know, it was just 100% of the houses or the townhouses listed sold. And you can see, no surprise, 400 to 500, 41% of the market. So that's the bulk of where these people are. Now, here's the condo market, apartment condo market, and this is more or less been the same story all the way from last September. You know, a year ago, we had a really strong condo market, and and now we're hovering just into that balanced versus buyer's market at 31.55%. So the demand just isn't as high, but the supply has been incredible because, like I said, you just drive around Calgary and you'll notice there's apartment buildings all over the place. And I don't know why they need to build so much of it. I mean, we should look at how many people are willing to buy these versus how many people need them. But I don't think that's ever a consideration. They're just I know our Canadian government is talking about affordable housing. Well, let's build more. But I always say, build more what? I think you still have to build more of what people want to buy. And the truth of the matter is, for Calgary, if the stats don't lie, most people want to live in a townhouse, a semi-detached, or a detached home. That's where most of the market is for Calgary. Toronto and Vancouver is a lot different. I mean, the downtown core has a really strong demand for condo living, and I think it's just the way the city is laid out and how big the city is and traffic and getting around. But for Calgary, what we've done is we've built condos all over the city. We built these 4-story units and placed them in various different places all over the city. They're not strategically put just in the downtown area like Toronto and Vancouver have done. And so they're trying to create this high density living mixed in with, detached homes and semi-detached homes. And me personally, I question that a little bit because, there's, like I said, most people, the goal is if you're going to have a family, you'd like to have a backyard for the kids and whatnot. And condo living is not that. I mean, condo living is more of a lifestyle, for people. And that's why, condos generally do well in Vancouver and Toronto because they're strategically put in areas that are walkable and easy to get to work. And it makes a lot of sense. So I don't know. That's just my opinion. I question just a little the strategic maneuver on where they're placing these condos in Calgary. But it is what it is, and that's what we've got to deal with. Our benchmark price of $336,000. You can see that that's slightly down month over month, and it is just slightly up year over year. So we're still not seeing any price drops here that are significant. But again, some pockets of the city probably will. But if we look at this absorption rate closely, we're going to follow this into next month. If we get into that buyer's market territory, you're going to see that we might see some price softening. 589 out of 1,867 sold, and the sweet spot, no surprise, 300 to 400,000. All right, this chart here, I'm going to show you right there. This is up until May 17th, 2025. Our total sales in May are 1,373, and last year they were 1,619 up until this date last year, and it was 1,641. So you can see we're down about 16%. And I'm showing you this is because this is what's happened after the election. But active listings, you'll see now we're at 6,703, and so we're 104% higher than we were a year ago on active listings. And that's what's definitely giving buyers a lot of choice. And it's also, it's forcing some sellers who really want to sell to really be priced correctly and do the right things. So you got to pay attention to those stats, whether you're a buyer or whether you're a seller. Now, if we look at detached houses, you'll see here that our total sales, 671 versus 730 a year ago. So we're down about 12.97%. That's not too significant, but same story. We're up 92% on our active listing inventory. But row houses, this is really interesting here. 230 sales versus 269. So we're down 9.45% from 2 years ago. We're down 14.5% year over year. But the inventory from 2 years ago is up 177% right here. And a year ago, we're up 163%. So what a change of events for townhouses. And this is, if this continues to see this rising inventory and softening of the sales, then obviously we're going to see some softening on prices as well. At this moment, they're holding, but there's no doubt in my mind that if this trend continues, I think you're going to see that some softening on prices on semi-detached, and that's going to be, row houses. That's going to be a good opportunity for some people out there if you're looking to buy. But I will say this: I'm watching this really closely, and I think as we have more confidence in the Alberta market, even though there's all this talk going on about Canada going into a recession, there's still talk on tariffs and how that will affect Canada. Again, because we're very local, we're Alberta, I think we are going to be insulated from a lot of it. That's just my opinion. We'll see how the stats, shake out as we keep looking at this as we move forward into the coming months. As I keep saying, we'll let the stats tell the truth, not just people's opinions. Here's semi-detached, 140 sold. That's almost the same as last year, only down 3.45%. But same story, 114% in inventory. And if we move to apartment condominiums, we have 332 have sold so far in May. So that's down 30.11% from a year ago. And we have 90.22% more listing inventory in apartment condos. So this gives you a pretty good understanding of what's going on. So hopefully this has been helpful, and then hopefully this has helped you make sense of all of the noise out there for what people's opinions are of what's going on the economic environment and really what's happening in the real estate world. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. Because people ask me all the time, is this really a good time to be buying a property in Calgary? And it's funny, I always say, look, 10 years ago would have been the best time to buy a property in Calgary. This is probably still the second best time in order to do it. If you have a long-term perspective in mind, if you're going to keep your property for a minimum 5 years, I think this is a very healthy time to be buying real estate in Calgary. The interest rates are relatively reasonable. The pricing is holding. There's every reason to believe that the pricing will, I'll say, reasonably hold up. We could still see some more softening, but you can never time a bottom. You can never time a top entirely. People who try to do that constantly make the wrong decisions. I still can't believe how many people didn't buy a property during COVID, and I tried to convince some people to do it, but they were too nervous. They thought the real estate world was coming to pieces. It didn't happen, and I feel quite strongly that Alberta will do well over the next 5 years. We have some good things on the horizon. It seems like even for moving our energy products out to the world, it looks like it's going to be a little bit better for Alberta in the next 5 years than it was in the previous 5. So consider that. That's why I feel quite strongly that Alberta is a good place to invest. But feel free to reach out to me if you've got questions about the community that you live in right now. We all know that real estate is very local. So the community that you live in can be quite a bit different than the community across the city. And you have to look at those numbers very, very carefully when you're looking at selling or whether you're looking at buying. And you can tell I'm a bit of a data junkie. So I always work with the data when I work with my clients. So hope that's helpful, everyone. See you next month.